Welcome back to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. I'm your mortgage broker host, Taylor Atkinson.
And I'm your real estate agent host, Matt Glenn. What's happening today, Taylor?
Good show today, man. We double dipped.
It's a twofer.
Yeah. Graham Allison from City of Kelowna come on, talk about all things zoning. We obviously saw some massive changes provincially and in our own municipality. Basically just talking about changing from, the RU to the MF, what that means, what directions the city's going, and, provincially kind of what's happened.
The fast track and the fast track competition.
Yeah. And then part two to this show, we brought on Aaron Whalen, who was one of the winners for the fast track program. So if you haven't heard about that, basically City of Kelowna put on a competition to help promote Infill. And, it's like a $15,000 you purchase this product, has the renderings, has the architectural approval, the city approval. You still have to do a survey, but it is like, hey, here's your BPDP, go build what's already approved. So really cool program with a lot of evolution behind it. So kudos to the City of Kelowna.
Yeah, it's kind of the way the episode is first half talking to the city, second half talking with the designer. It's pretty cool. It's very interesting for, the infill in our city, like not just downtown where traditionally it's been downtown, kind of Martin, Stockwell, that area. And then the other side, which is around the hospital, basically the entire flat area of Kelowna. So like Springfield, Spall, Rutland North, Rutland South. It's exciting. Big emphasis on properties to develop that don't have lane access, which for the last few years has been like a major, you can just tell right away when you walk up to a property if it has a lane access or not, if it's going to be developable or not. But city really wants to make the ones with no lane access accessible. And they talk about that with both people today.
Yeah, for me, some of the takeaway, like you said, we're not just talking about lane access now, and you can build as many or as little units as you want, really, and we can finance both of them with two very creative products that are insured mortgages. So minimum down payment, you go with the MLI, you can stretch it out to 50-year amortization. Now, me putting on my investor hat, analyzing these, they still don't make like a huge amount of sense in terms of like return on investment. However, it's not to say that that's not going to happen soon, right? Interest rates come down a little bit. Cool programs from the City of Kelowna, like waiving property taxes for the next 10 years if they're purpose-built rentals. So they are getting this stuff aligned. It's just as soon as the stars align, you want to be prepared. So I think it's good education, and reach out to the city's great. Awesome resource. And Aaron as well. Like, give the guy a call.
Oh my God, they both are. Yeah. It's funny, just thinking out loud here. When you were talking there, so basically the interest rates are almost the only thing that can come down, because land prices are likely not coming down, or not coming down significantly enough to make a real difference, right? We were just talking off air about the difference on these projects. If you buy a land for 1.1, or even if you take 300K off of that, which is not going to happen, but even if you did, like that's only 300,000 off of $4+ million project at the end. That helps, not everything. Inflation's like under control now, but prices aren't back down. We're just up, and they're just not going up as fast anymore, right? So like once prices are a certain way, they don't come back down. So how does this get more affordable, right? It seems to me like the interest rates are the only real lever.
Yeah, the interest rates, the longer amortization with the MLI Select, I think little incentives like waiving the property tax, or even, I know this isn't going to happen. I spoke with the city about this, but maybe in the long future, potentially like waiving DCC fees during the build application and like incorporating it at time of occupancy permit or something like that. There's got to be some more creative things in the pipeline that make it more affordable to at least get the unit there and then consolidate that in the financing. So I think the direction the city and the province are going, there will be opportunities. Can't really say exactly what they are now, but if you're looking at just, hey, I want a cash flow, I don't think these work in today's market, but they're not far off now.
And also, they might not cash flow today, but my God, would it be nice to have a sixplex going to Kelowna for the next 20, 30 years? Like, I don't think you're going wrong with that at all.
Okay, so a really cool thing that Aaron highlighted is his mindset when he was doing the design. And again, like his designs were beautiful, is like generational type family living. So this allows you to maybe have one or two units of rental income, and then, you split it with a brother, a mother, or whatever kind of setup you want. But if you have a current single family house and you want to convert it and have, generational type family with some rental income, that's a pretty good approach. It doesn't all have to cash flow. If you're like, hey, I want to live in this area and provide housing for my family and provide some rental income, here's an option. So yeah, I think you guys are going to love the show. Reach out to those guys at any point. And
remember, it's 2 halves, so kind of 15 minutes and then 20 minutes. So they're awesome.
Yeah.
This show, like every show, sponsored by Century 21 Assurance Realty, the best brokerage in town, the biggest brokerage in town, and my brokerage. If you're an agent looking for a change or you want to go for coffee and talk about it, I'm always open. So is Max Dean at our office. And if you're a buyer or a seller looking for an agent, Century 21, place to go. Or you can just call me.
All right. Enjoy the show, guys. Graham Allison from the City of Kelowna. Thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, I'm doing well.
Good. Well, we want to dive straight into the information that you guys have been working on. I mean, I would imagine your department has been just buried in policy changes and just evolution of city planning over the last little bit. I think Matt's probably more up to speed with all this knowledge, being kind of boots on the ground. But for myself and general public, can you let us know, like, what has happened over the last 6 to 12 months for planning, infill, fast track, and kind of where are we going? And we'll just go from there.
Sure thing. Yeah, so it has been a very busy couple of months for us in the housing policy department. There's been some big major zoning changes, which were dictated by the provincial planning legislation, which came into effect at the beginning of 2024. Two major changes to zoning would be the SSMUH, or the small scale multi-unit housing reforms, which basically ordered cities over 5,000 people to establish a permanent growth boundary and then do basically blanket rezonings or pre-zonings of all single family or residential lots within that boundary to allow 4 to 6 units. So how that looks in the city of Kelowna and how it's been implemented is within the core area, all single family lots have been rezoned to MF1, which is the multifamily 1 housing zone. The MF1 zone allows for up to 6 units within 3 stories as a general rule. Outside of the core area, in the suburban neighborhoods, so we're talking the Mission, some parts of Rutland, the RU1 zone has essentially been changed to allow 4 housing units. So, and that would be like 2-story, 4-unit townhomes, similar to what sort of the existing infill sort of around the hospital and downtown looks like now. The other change is the transit-oriented areas, kind of areas around major transit exchanges, such as the Rutland Exchange, around the Pandosi Urban Center, and around Orchard Mall, have been rezoned to allow up to 10 stories, and those don't have any parking minimums. But, as it affects infill housing, the small-scale multi-unit is sort of the major change for the majority of single-family lots within the city.
For the parking variance, or like no parking, is that a city or province wide thing? I know in Vancouver they've established it, but
yeah, so it's a provincial mandate. So essentially what it says is that the city can't enforce a minimum parking requirement on developments within that area. It doesn't mean that no parking is going to get built. Obviously, developers are still going to build units that they think they can sell. In a city like Kelowna, those usually will include a parking stall. But, general kind of planning scholarship over the last kind of 20 years has found that the way that cities determine these parking minimums aren't necessarily the most scientific. So by not enforcing a strict minimum, it's more about letting the market decide how much parking can be allotted to these units while still making them financially feasible to build. Okay.
And then in terms of for future planning, what does the city want to see? Like, what is your ideal kind of land development info? Obviously, you guys have come out with the fast track, which is like an amazing concept, and it's being utilized right now. Is that the direction like the city wants to go, is essentially fast, efficient building of density?
Yeah, the way that the city's laid out our official community plan is to get the most density around our urban centers, so our largest employment centers, and also try to channel more of that density in sort of the 6-story typology along transit supportive corridors. So this is to get that kind of critical mass around places where then we can begin to expand our transit options in our mass transit. Everything else around there, since we don't have space to continue greenfield developments and new single family housing, is to build what we call missing middle, which is essentially multifamily housing that still falls under that single family housing part of the building code. It's part 9 in the BC building code. So generally, if you were to build a single family house, you don't need to go through a form of character or a development permit process to just build a single family house. Generally, for fourplexes, threeplexes, and up, we require a form and character development permit. So the intent of the fast track process is to make it so that we can still meet those form and character guidelines that are established by our official community plan, but without needing to have a 3 to 4 month kind of turnaround to do a rezoning and a development permit. So the fast track essentially takes pre-approved designs that staff have approved that meet all of our OCP guidelines, as well as our building and permitting guidelines. And so when an application comes through, we can issue that development permit and building permit in the same time frame. So make it so that an application for a fourplex or a sixplex follows a similar timeline to what a single family house building permit application would follow.
Yeah, it's wild that this wasn't done earlier. Like now that you guys have executed it, it's like, wow, this is a pretty good idea, right? Like,
well, yeah. And interestingly, the city actually did introduce a fast track process. I believe it was between 2015 and 2022. It's for a lot smaller area, sort of the area between downtown and the hospital. On those lots that are kind of lane loaded, where you started to see more and more fourplexes, there were 2 designs that won a competition back in those days that were fast track eligible. And we ended up getting, dozens of those lots developed into those fast track houses. So you can kind of see them if you go through those neighborhoods. And they sort of helped catalyze the development of other infill housing within that neighborhood, as they gave people kind of an idea of what those site plans and parking layouts could look like. So that program ended a couple of years ago, partly because people were just starting to complain about the fact that we had only 2 designs that were sort of getting repeatedly built in that small area. So the new fast track be applied throughout the entire core area. We started with 4 designs, and then those designs have some different variations within them. And now we're working on adding more and more designs and lot types to that fast track so we can get more diversity throughout the city, unlock new lots, and try to expand that infill housing to other population centers like Rutland and Glenmore, etc.
Do you guys just take like new permits that come in, like a new style fourplex that gets approved, and then be like, wow, let's add this to our fast track program? It was beautiful.
We're not at that point yet. It's possible that we could get there in the future. The way that we did it for this phase is we had a design competition for architects a couple of years back called the Infill Challenge, which was targeted at unlocking lots that aren't accessed by a lane, so front-loaded lots, to get some design ideas for that.
Yeah.
We then took those and adapted them to the new zoning changes when that small-scale multi-unit housing legislation was adopted.
Nice.
To roll it out with these zoning changes. But moving forward, we want to add more and more lots that wouldn't necessarily come through that architecture style competition. So it is possible that we'll have something like that in the future, but not at this point.
Nice. Yeah, I guess when you move into areas like Rutland, where there isn't, like downtown and Lower Mission, Kelowna South, like around the hospital, they all have lanes, but I guess in Rutland, less prevalent, eh?
Yeah, it's less prevalent, and it can be a lot trickier to fit that parking, landscaping, and kind of, garbage facilities all within those lots. So that is one of the benefits of having a competition, is you can have designers kind of try to meet that challenge.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that's been really successful about that original infill area is that it was all lane access. So you could really easily just fit that garage coming right off the lane. So figuring out parking is definitely one of the barriers to all housing, but to infill housing especially.
Yeah, interesting. I know a guy that's building a fourplex. I think that the lot can have 6 or 5, but he's doing a fourplex and then parking and then putting a 5th unit above the parking.
Yeah.
Outside the box way to think about it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about like with the OCP, is there any room for like applying for a variance or like anything like that? One comes to mind. I have a listing down in by the hospital that's just shy of the size needed for 6 stories. I think it's 1,400 meters. You need 1,400 square meters. Is that right? It's like 1,370 or something. Is that just off the table, or is there room for an application for a variance there? Or
not that I know of. I'm not one of the development planners, so I couldn't answer on a project by project whether or not they'd support a variance. But with single stair egress being allowed by the BC Building Code and being adopted in the near future, there could be a change in how we approach those sort of lots. But for me, I'd say that I'm not sure. Really,
that's what I've been telling people too. So.
Yeah.
Personally, I would try to avoid getting like individual variance questions as part of this, just because.
Yeah. It wasn't specifically about that. I was more just in general, right? Do people like, is this the rules and that's the way it is? Or is there room for like kind of smudging the edges is what I was wondering.
Yeah. I mean, variances can happen on a site-by-site basis if development staff determine that, the benefits outweigh the risks. And with the new building code updates, that could be more likely on smaller lots for multi-story developments above just MF1. But, it all depends on where the lot is. And
I think this is why you guys came out with, similar like fast track program though, right? Is to stop going to like public hearings, to stop kind of wasting a lot of time reviewing and debating over that stuff, where it's like, here's a black and white, this is what's going to be approved and this is what's not.
Especially for infill, that was a multi-year process. The first step was getting rid of that rezoning. And really the biggest step for infill housing is getting rid of the need to individually have to rezone a lot. It adds so much time. It adds a ton of cost and a lot of uncertainty, where, now we have basically any lot in the city. If you wanted to take it and build 4 to 6 units, you can. So that alone increases the timeline. And we just tried to take as many steps to say, if the building code classifies this as a single family house, then how can we make it so that we can get these built as quickly as we can with single family homes, so we can get that supply and we can cover that deficit of housing.
Yeah.
I know, like, when you go farther out of town, like talking about areas like Crawford and McKinley, like they have septic systems everywhere. Is there any plan for that? Or is those kind of just being sitting there the way they are for now until sewer comes through? Or
if they're not serviced by sewer, the zoning changes don't impact them. So they are still sitting in a place where they're more almost considered, country residential, or it's not in this core area where we want to focus the majority of our housing development. Part of this is making sure that we can upgrade existing servicing and get our infrastructure to a place where it can support that multifamily in the established areas of the city, rather than expanding kind of our sewage service outside of that. I mean, obviously those are important projects for the future, but the majority of our housing changes of the last few years have been focused on the established neighborhoods rather than...
I guess it's easier to get infrastructure and servicing traffic and all that.
Yeah, and the long-term goal is to have infrastructure that we can maintain more easily, which works better in a more dense city.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. We're going to record with Aaron right after this and get into the fast track, how he's, developed his drawings and renderings. Before we do that, can you just briefly summarize the change between like the RU and the MF? Like, what is the major difference between those two designations? I mean, RU's basically gone now, right?
RU essentially was our single family housing typology, whereas MF is a multifamily housing typology. For, the majority of Kelowna's existence, the majority of our housing was single family. And so that RU7 zone kind of represented a really gentle transition from that single family housing to more of a multifamily typology. Now that we've, started to grow even more in the last couple of years, shifting that multifamily into the core area and keeping kind of a higher density single family out in the suburbs has become more of the shift, since we can't keep building single family outward. So essentially, like, moving from RU kind of smaller scale single family infill typology to a more intense one around our urban centers and within our core area is just kind of the best way that we can keep diverse housing typologies while still having sort of a smaller scale neighborhood feel, within the core area, and then shifting downward as we go towards the outskirts of the city.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
I love it too. Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, yeah, I know that was pretty jam-packed for information, but yeah, we appreciate you coming on and sharing that. And I mean, I guess really the next step for people, if they're looking at buying an infill lot or they have an existing one, is just go to the city, right? Like, contact you guys. Don't you have like an AI chat now as well? Like, a lot of this stuff is online.
Yeah, if you're looking for infill eligibility, we have a chatbot on our website, kelowna.ca/infill. You can get all the info you need on infill housing there, on the fast track program, what lots are eligible. And then our planning department is happy to answer any questions, planninginfo@kelowna.ca. We always have planners monitoring that phone line and inbox and answering questions to the best of our ability.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
You guys are awesome. Like, very good.
Yeah, you guys are putting on events with middle housing, middle class, like just a lot of good information that I feel was kind of smoke and mirrors 10 years ago, so.
Also, yeah, and then when you send an email, it gets answered. So yeah, I can't say enough about that. It's been awesome.
Good to get good reviews. Yeah, no, we need a lot of housing and we're really trying to meet that demand.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Okay, guys, part 2 here. We're going to jump on with Aaron from SNDBOX, SNDBOX. Super cool guy. I think you guys are going to love this part of the show. Great energy and yeah, just a good dude to connect with.
And both of these people that we just talked to are open for emails. So if you are curious about something or you want to get more information, like fire them an email. They both answer and they're both awesome.
Yeah, Aaron's not really on social media because he works, unlike Matt and I.
Yeah, that's like the trope of an agent is the more they post on social media, usually the less sales are doing because they have more times.
I was going to say, man, you're posting a lot right now.
Yeah. That works for everybody except for me, Taylor. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, enjoy part 2, guys. Okay, welcome to the show, Aaron Whalen. How are you, man?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So I met you or watched your presentation at a middle housing event put on by City of Kelowna, and I thought your presentation was incredibly awesome. Renderings were super cool and just valuable information that we could, take that and inform our listener. Do you want to give us kind of a real high-level summary of who you are, what you're doing, and go from there?
Yeah, my name is Aaron Whalen. Originally grew up in Ontario and went to school in Toronto for architecture. I started, designing custom homes in the Muskoka area, some pretty high-end stuff early on in my career. And then eventually that moved me out west to pursue more of an active lifestyle. I started working for larger firms, doing everything from apartment housing to hospitals, airports, everything in the middle. And, I've spent the last 10 years in Kelowna, getting to know the city, getting to know the province. I've kind of taken all that experience and synthesized it into this, so far, one-man studio of SNDBOX, just focusing on kind of middle housing. So everything in between the apartment housing and the custom family homes, try to provide a bit of an answer to the housing crisis in Kelowna and the province that we're facing right now. So, and hopefully that'll be more like explorative, innovative forms of housing. But so far, it's only about a year into the journey. So yeah, lots of changes, lots of new stuff. So.
Yeah. How did you know that was the niche, like the middle housing infill? Did you just see that opportunity? Or, I mean, we can talk about this right away too, is the fast track system in Kelowna, which is, essentially what this podcast is kind of based around. You were one of the winners, right, of that program. So is that kind of what was the catalyst for you to start this?
It's a great question. Yes, it was kind of an offspring of the competition back in 2021. I did follow the original competition, which would have been 1.0. The one that I was part of was the 2.0 put on by the City of Kelowna. But I watched very closely what happened to the first one and kind of all of the infill development that happened in the city as a result of that. It was crazy. It just kind of caught like wildfire. There's infills popping up everywhere, like very close to where I live downtown. And, some of them are great, some of them maybe not so much. Like, I think there was some room for improvement. And yeah, I really wanted to give the competition a solid go just to see if I could throw something in the mix that was a little bit different. Came second place, which was great. Something about that middle housing scale that's very intimate, but you can also make a large impact on the community through it, right? It's not just, an apartment building or a tower that takes 2+ years to build. Like, these things are designed and built within a year. So you can make an impact very quickly. And I think that's where I really enjoy, architecture, is like being able to make community impact. So it's been a good go as a result of the competition. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what did you design for the competition? Did you design a fourplex?
Yeah. So the original competition was using the original zoning bylaw. Like, we just recently went through a kind of a provincial change of bylaws and densities. Yeah. So it really shook things up quite a bit. That was post competition, right? So City of Kelowna was trying to be, and they were very progressive, putting on the competition. And I think it was extremely successful. And the province almost threw a wrench in the whole thing by, increasing the density and kind of maybe relaxing some of the setbacks. But yeah, originally it was a 4-unit infill, and it was mainly around trying to create diversity and resilience, with a bit of an environmental flavor behind it, all with affordability on mind, right? So I approached it in a way where instead of doing replicable units, I would have 4 different sizes catering to a different audience to try to bring together multi-generational living. That was kind of the premise of it all. And, we won the competition, but then we're tasked to redesign it to, take advantage of some of those provincial mandates. So we tried to keep the theme the same, but maybe bump some of the density. And yeah, now there's a 5-unit version too. So as a result of that, yeah.
The original contest was, this is the lot size. You guys go for it. Like, that was essentially the parameter.
Yeah, more or less. They gave us setbacks, max coverage, parking, requirements, kind of the normal stuff that you would need to design an infill, with a bit of relaxation, but more or less, follow these rules and try to create something interesting.
What was the size of the lot you guys used?
Yeah, it was a 21 meter wide by 38 meter deep parcel, flat, non-laneway loaded. So, vehicular access has to come from the street. And that was basically covering off the majority of lots in Kelowna that the first competition, didn't cover. That was all specific to laneway lots in that kind of downtown core area. So this was, more of those suburban Rutland lots, and even in Lower Mission, Glenmore, there's tens of thousands of lots.
Can you give a brief summary of the fast track as well, in terms of like, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, hey, that's my lot, I want to do some infill, what do they do? Like, now essentially there's these designs that you and some other architects have provided to the city, and the city's put their stamp of approval on it and says anyone can come in and essentially do a BP, DP, and rock and roll like incredibly fast, but they have to use your specific approved design, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there are 4 designs, or 4 different designers as part of this, which is really interesting, because after, we found out we had won and it was moving forward to this fast track program, I had actually reached out to the other designers to create a bit of a conversation around like, hey, let's work together. Let's not try to compete against each other. Let's try to do this together. So during that process, we became pretty good friends, and there was a lot of learning there. And we kind of helped tailor that fast track program, at least from the designer side, as best we could. So essentially, we tried to price them all the same, and we tried to have the same amount of information in each package. So somebody from the public could, choose it based on the design and not, what's included in that package, or, what's cheaper, or etc. So essentially you would come to any of the designers and there's a pre-approved development permit and building permit ready to go. And that includes like structural design, energy modeling, landscape, all of the requirements that you would need, and that usually take months of work. It's kind of ready to go. And the only thing we would have to do is get a survey of the lot, adapt the site plan to it, and then just kind of put our seal of approval on it for the city. They already trust us, and the package is ready to go.
Awesome. So do you know, has anyone used your design yet? Do you know?
They haven't. I've had a lot of phone calls. It was a bit slow. I think, the industry as a whole has been a bit rattled with interest rates and and land prices are just so high, right? Part of the success in the first go around was just the land prices were low and interest rates were low, right?
Yeah.
I think now we're getting a lot of calls and a lot of interested people, but yeah, no one's really like 100% jumped on. So
I think it's cool that you guys collectively have kind of almost worked yourself out of a job, just in terms of like future. So it's not like people need to now pay geotopo, architect, engineers over and over and over again to do essentially the same thing, right? Like, that fee is bundled up in one application, and that's paid to mostly the city of Kelowna now. Like, that's why they put on this contest. Is that kind of right? Like, is it about a $15,000 application or something? Or
yeah, all of the 4-unit designs are priced at $15,000, which includes all of the consulting work and everything kind of needed to make that application. I would have to contact energy modeling and structural just to get people to update addresses, and I have to do the site plan. But yeah, you're saving quite a bit of money. Like, the soft costs alone are usually probably $50,000+ for all of that, and you're saving a considerable amount of money, and you're getting it quick, right? So I think, generally the response we've gotten so far is that everyone loves the rendering, loves the imagery. Most people who aren't developers and, are doing this for themselves want to make floor plan tweaks and kind of cater it for their own use, which is, I guess, not surprising, but it's challenging when you're trying to, maintain the fast track turnaround time, but also adding extra units. And
Do you ever just want to be a smartass and be like, yeah, no, absolutely. So if you just use the slow track program, we can just, yeah, we can start from square one.
Yeah, I haven't. That's pretty funny.
If anyone hasn't seen the renderings, like, they are beautiful. You guys have done
Thank
a
you.
pretty cool job. So
As a realtor, like, how do I know what lot would apply for? Just any lot that's, would you say 21 by 38 meters?
Yeah, this is a really good question because most of the people who have asked me have a lot that doesn't conform. And we're finding that depth is a really big one. And that 38 meters deep, at least for Mosaic, which would be SNDBOX, it's pretty like pivotal. And
Yeah, okay.
I also represent Miguel out of Mexico, who was the first place winner. His project Maple Terraces. He and I have a bit of an arrangement so I can facilitate some of the phone calls and interest here locally.
Nice.
But, between his and 2x2 architecture's design on the coast, I think they have a bit more flexibility with lot size, whereas I really pigeonholed myself into a 21 by 38 meter size. But yeah, so I have had real estate agents ask, and I've given them like a bit of a cut sheet just of, this is the size. These are the things to watch out for. So you want to try to get something that's relatively flat, that doesn't have any easements through it. Hydro lines are usually a big one, making sure that hydro lines aren't, encroaching the property.
Like, will it work on a corner lot?
Yes, it will work on a corner lot. Whether the City of Kelowna will see it as a fast track approved design is yet to be determined, but I am quite confident that Mosaic would be a great corner lot candidate.
Yeah.
Typically, the corner lots are a little bit narrower, but you don't have to provide that like drive aisle off the street for garage access. You can just use the side street. It would be perfect.
yeah.
Interesting. I'm just wondering, so, like, would you be okay if a realtor, like, just advertise your design as the potential to go here? Would the city be okay with that? Or
Absolutely. I think that's kind of what it's for. It's, it's to show potential. And if it helps sell a project, knowing that it works, like, why not? Like, that's the whole point of this. I'd love to see as many of them as I can in Kelowna.
it's awesome because, like, I myself have a few of these listings currently and also coming up, and I'm like, man, like, you take the drone photos to advertise, and then, like, I don't want to go pay a developer or go to pay a designer to all this money to do a design that nobody's going to use. But if you have one of these already ready to go that helps you too, I feel like that would be extraordinarily helpful for me and also all the other agents working. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it in the GIS or like where City of Kelowna like flags those automatically now? Like, hey, this is fast track applicable?
They have an internal database with those. I'm not sure if it's public knowledge of which lots qualify, but I think their kind of chat bot filters them out for you. So if you punch in your address, it'll give you a yes or no.
Okay.
I do feel like the chat bot is a bit misleading. Like
AI, I'll do that.
Yeah, well, I think it generalizes, right?
Yeah.
It's not as smart as they would hope it would be, because I think you can adapt these designs to lots that are maybe just outside the norm, and I think it's really up to the designer to work with the City of Kelowna to like affirm that the design complies. It's not a problem with the building code. It should be accelerated, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who does like the design that maybe gets a no from the chatbot, to still contact the designer because it still might work.
So for myself and any agents listening or any people that are curious about their own house, what's the best way to find out, like the chatbot, or like what about firing you an email? You're going to get absolutely inundated with all of our listeners. I'm thinking thousands.
Bring it on, right?
You'll have to hire an assistant just to reply to these emails.
Create my own chatbot.
Yeah.
Sandbot. Please send me an email. I love like the early phase of exploring, like, will it work? That's kind of exciting time, and it doesn't take long. Like, it might be 5 minutes out of my day, which is not a lot. But the chatbot on the City of Kelowna is also very effective, and I think they've got some talented engineers behind that, so it's a very instantaneous yes or no.
I can just see Matt having like a 3-hour long conversation with the chatbot, just back and forth. What about this lot? No? What about this?
I'd really appreciate it if we could meet for coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean the files are in the computer?
What are the next steps for Fast Track? Like, is there going to be a Fast Track 3.0? Like, what's next? What's on the horizon?
I don't know. How much did the city guys tell you? They're going to try to, expand this fast track library, right? I don't think that's private news. So the idea is to create like a robust library. So it's not just 4 designs, right?
Yeah.
It's 20, 30, 50. These designs could be applied to Kelowna, hopefully other municipalities, Vernon, Penticton, stuff like that would be great. But yeah, I think that is coming pretty soon. I think the city of Kelowna is actively trying to sort out what the next wave will look like. Maybe they're after like different size lots. Maybe they're opening it up to, whatever design, whatever shape of lot. If it's a great design that they feel comfortable with, then maybe they just offer it.
Wave is a perfect description for it. I do feel like this is the next big thing for our city to densify as well as just grow and become like a more beautiful place to live in, because some of these designs are awesome, but it's such a daunting task for, us common folk to walk up to a lot and be like, what are we going to do here? And yeah, you're right. The soft costs are like extraordinarily high to even get to the point to see if it's worth going after. One cool connection. So we interviewed Steven Jagger off of Addy probably about 15 episodes ago. And, speaking with him, they're actually like testing out the Fast Track and buying it and funding it from Addy. So not only is it like the Fast Track program, but it's funded from their platform. So I could see like that just like catching on fire, right? If these buildings going up and being financed, if it works. I think the other thing to point out that we haven't spoke about, which could be a great opportunity, is like if these are purpose-built rentals over, 5 units and above, like MLI Select is a perfect fit for this. So, we're going to actually speak about that in a couple episodes, but up to 50-year amortizations, really good rates.
You just said 5 units and above. Is there a design for 5 units and above, or are they all just 4 units?
Yeah. So when we were given the option to redesign it for the new provincial mandates, we made sure that there was a 5-unit option to take advantage of MLI Select, which is very strategic. I do know Steven, and I know the Addy platform quite well. We've got a project going up, hopefully shortly in the new year here, and it's through the Addy platform. It's on Ethel Street. It's actually already gone through the first kind of phase of the Addy investment. So that project should be going up soon, and I love what they're doing. It's a great way to get real estate and projects going.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to linger on this 5, because I know a lot of lots now are zoned for 6 units in Kelowna. Is there going to be a 6 unit? Like, can you see Fast Track 3.0 including a 6 unit? Can yours go to 6 or?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that, when the city opens up this next wave, I'll have a 6. Actually, I already have a 6 unit ready to go.
Nice.
It's very different. It's, like I think with SNDBOX, I'm trying to push the boundaries a little bit. So this next design's maybe a bit more adventurous. And I think, some people love it, some people might not so much, but I do think that 6 units is very challenging. The livability of it is tricky, right? And if you want to really follow the zoning and have 6 parking stalls with 6 units, that's a lot of cars.
Yeah, it must be like mostly road on a lot.
I know, it's very challenging. So we have to think of like new creative ways of tackling the vehicle troubles, right? And try to make it, livable and not just a parking lot, like you say.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are really ahead of the curve on this, you guys being SNDBOX and City of Kelowna, because the MLI Select's been around for a long time, but as well as, there's insured mortgage up to 90% loan to value on exactly what you guys are doing is like infill up to 4 units. So there wasn't that a month ago. Really, these are much more attractive financing terms and people are able to take advantage of that. It's already set up. You have the design, financing's there. It's just about, pulling the trigger on it. So kudos to you and City of Kelowna for evolutionary state of mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trying our best. I think, if you kind of look beyond Kelowna, like what the provincial, standardization designs look like, I think there's a lot of challenges there. I don't think those designs, like as beautiful as they are, I don't think they work. I think what Kelowna is doing is something really amazing where all the projects that they're marketing, they all work. So it's pretty cool.
How can we support you, or how can people get in contact you, follow you, Instagram, whatever? Like if people are interested in your business and fast track program and your designs, how can we find out more about you?
I'm pretty quiet on social media and LinkedIn and all the platforms because I'm usually producing work, but
Wait,
Hey, what are you saying?
you're saying Matt and I don't work? You're absolutely
Oh my
right.
God.
these things, there's so much work that goes into like hundreds and hundreds of hours of just me clicking buttons. So I'm really hoping to like have a bit of, social media presence eventually, but I do have an Instagram account, SNDBOX, SNDBOX. Yeah, you can find my website, which will hopefully have more than one project on it soon. Email Aaron at sandbox.sndbox.ca.
Awesome.
It's probably
That's awesome.
the easiest way. You can find the contact on the City of Kelowna website too, under the kelowna.ca/infill.
Cool. One other question before we let you go. Cost to build, high level, like per square foot. What are people looking at for your design?
We've done some cost estimating. I think like a pretty baseline spec, meaning like, hardy board siding and, vinyl flooring, nothing crazy. You're probably looking at $285 a square foot. Obviously if you start wanting to bump those finishes, you're probably in the low threes, like 315, 325 a square foot build costs. So I think it's very reasonable and competitive, and it's not that scary. And the units aren't so large that number doesn't like balloon, right?
Yeah.
It's very strategic to try to keep the unit sizes small enough so the cost per square footage cost doesn't blow the mortgage out of the water for first time home buyers and people looking to downsize. So
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, yeah,
That's awesome.
really appreciate everything you're doing in the city, and thanks for your time coming on the show.
yeah, thanks so much for reaching out. It's always fun to chat about this. So,
And I will be firing you an email about this kinds of things. So,
please do.
yeah.
Your drawing's going to be posted on like 9 of Matt's listings now, whether it's applicable or not.
You're not on social media now, but you will be in about a week. So,
Better hire that chatbot soon.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, have a great day, man.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.